All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Batting 1,000, where we bring in the heavy hitters from the mortgage and real estate industry. And man, I am super excited for all of you for today because we've got an incredible guest. Cindy Ertman is with us today. Yes, Cindy Ertman, the person that we've all known for decades to be a leader in our industry. Let me just tell you a bit about Cindy. If you don't know who she is, she must be living in a cage right now or a cave because she's done it all. She is a nationally recognized mortgage industry leader, speaker, and coach. She was named one of Mortgage Executive Magazine's top 100 most influential executives 5 years in a row. That's amazing. She's a top 100 mortgage loan originator for over a decade. She has shared the stage with people like Tony Robbins, Darren Hardy, Magic Johnson, Les Brown, former President George Bush. Pretty amazing. And I'm going to read this, Cindy, because I think this is awesome. I love your mission. It says, her mission is to help high-performing mortgage professionals expand their income and impact by breaking through barriers, leading with intention. I love that. Can't wait to talk about that. Building extraordinary lives and businesses. And she's done all of that. I have had the great privilege to know of Cindy forever. Had the better privilege of finally meeting Cindy for the first time not too long ago. Cindy, it is so great to have you. Thanks for coming on Batting 1,000.
Oh, Dale, it's just an honor. Truly, I'm just honored to be here with you all. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. So, look, there's so much to talk about. I want to hear so much from you because I know you will just bring so much wisdom and knowledge to the people listening. So let me start here. There's two things that I want to know out of the gate. What is the number one mistake that you are seeing that loan officers are making around the country that's keeping them from achieving that success that they could achieve? And then what is the number one thing that you are seeing that is probably the quintessential trait or strategy or characteristic of top producers, because you've trained tons and tons and tons of them over the years? I'd love to hear the two ends of the spectrum, and then I want to talk about kind of what you're seeing in the market, what you're doing to coach people to help them be successful, and just get a bunch of your wisdom that comes with the market.
Absolutely. Well, as we look at what it takes to be a top producer, and I think it starts to feel overwhelming. And I look, early in my career, it felt overwhelming for me too. I remember early in my career, I legitimately felt like these top producers must have found some kind of magic pill. And I kind of went, no joke, I kind of felt like there's some magic formula that they have found that has led them to this much production. And obviously what we find out is that it's just, we've got to take a step every single day.
Yep.
And so when I look at some of the gaps right now, I don't think the difference between top producers and everybody else really has much to do with talent, candidly.
Agreed.
I think it has to do, well, from my perspective, when I look back at my own business, and, my biggest year was just over 200 million in personal production, but I spent the better part of my career between 200 million, which, our loan amounts were a lot smaller than two. So, but the reality is, it was the start of the development of systems for me that started to really help with not only my scalability, being able to get in front of more people more efficiently, but also creating systems for developing referral partnerships. Because if I look at what I would call one of my all-time superpowers, is I became aware very early on that we really weren't in the mortgage industry, we were in the relationship industry. And I just became really focused. I started reading books on personal development and how to win friends and influence people. And I started going down a different path other than just mortgage coaching, which I've had for 40 years. But I went very deep into how could I build a real connection? Because I don't want to be transactional. I want to be relational, and I want to really serve people at a higher level. And I really realized I had to do that, one relationship at a time.
Yep.
But then it's one thing to build it, right, Dale? And then you've got to maintain it, and you've got to have a system to stay in front of it. I was leading a training this morning, and I heard over and over and over again, I have these great meetings and I have no follow-up plan. I get back to the office and I dive back in. I'm so busy, I don't have any system. So I don't even think when I was doing it, I realized I was doing it. But little by little, I started building systems for everything, but simple. And when you hear the word systems, for me, it's like hearing the word tax returns. I'm just like, oh, my eyes glaze over, like I don't really want to hear that word because what does
Yeah.
that mean? And I don't know how to build it. And, when I was building systems, we were building them on Excel spreadsheets because we didn't have all the automation that we have today. But the reality is, I started realizing that one, I have to map out a process. And I remember, and this sounds so simple and people can just swipe and adapt this, but it worked really effectively, is I coach on like, what are your three greatest strengths? And you'd think that'd be such an easy question, but I will ask even a top producer, like, what are your three greatest strengths in the context of how it serves your referral partners and your client base? And they have to think about that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say things like, well, I just really like people, or I'm really honest, and that's great. But is that a differentiator?
No.
So I realized for me that one of my differentiators was I felt I was a really strong communicator. But is that going to win me business over the guy down the street? Probably not. So I thought, what can I do to shine a brighter light on my ability to communicate? So I started looking at things we were already doing within our team and said, well, we've got a really good plan on how we communicate all the milestones of the loan, right? You're communicating. I had a system with my team as to how we communicated that, their file has moved into processing and congratulations, your value, property came in at value and all the different milestones. So I built the Cindy Ertman 10-point milestone communication. And I made it look really pretty. And I would take that to my realtor meetings and I would say, Mr. Realtor, one of the things my top realtor partners love about working with our team is our 10-point milestone communication plan. Now that seems so simple because it was something we were already doing, but I just shone a much brighter light on something that was a big challenge for realtors, which was, if I'm going to work with a new lender, am I going to be, do they know what they're doing? Am I going to be given status updates on the loan? And so I would always look at realtors' biggest challenges and become the solution to those. So that was just a simple system of, here's my 10-point milestone communication plan. You can expect to get a communication on all 10 points throughout the entire process. In addition to every Tuesday, you will never have to check in on the status of a loan with my team. And so it's just sometimes those simple things that we're already doing that nobody talks about. But I started dissecting what we were already doing and how could we make that a stronger value proposition to create trust with my partners. And just something as simple as that really changed the game in my business.
I love it. So you said so many things I want to unpack that were just, I think, core to any top producer. And you and I have both trained so many of them. I mean, gosh, and how many years you been in the business now, if you don't mind me asking, Cindy?
38.
I've been 43, been training companies for 31 years, trained millions of loan officers across the nation. And what I find time and time again is the separator between the top and everybody else is exactly what you just said. It's as simple as dividing transactional from relational, and it's having a system and process in place. And I like to use the word path. So, because I think people relate to that better. When they think of the word path, when you say system, I think of technology. Like right away, it's like a system is like technology. That's what most people think of when they think of that. When I say process, that's a little bit clearer in my mind for people, but they still kind of get confused. But when I say, here's the path you got to follow. All of a sudden, like, oh, I can walk a path. Yeah. And if you walk it, you will succeed. Like if you build a process that is based on best practices, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in the mortgage business. We've got all kinds of people who've been very successful for decades and decades and decades. And although technology has changed a lot of things, it hasn't changed the one basic thing. This is still the largest financial transaction a consumer goes through in their lifetime. It is still the biggest commission check that a realtor gets. It is still a life-changing industry that we're in. And it's still based on people. That's the core of what it is. It's not based on computers. You're not going to win because you have better systems in your technology or because you've got a better AI program. I am so tired of hearing about AI. And not that I don't think it's a powerful tool. It is for the right things. But it's all I hear about nowadays is AI. It's like, wait a minute, where's the HI? The human interaction piece. I get AI and that can help you, but it really comes down at the end of the day to being relational versus transactional, having a path that you can walk on. And what I love the most in what you said there, I think was critical was when you put together your 10-step process and presented to the realtor, what you were setting for them was expectations that they could rely on. And that's a matter of building trust. That builds trust with the realtor. So what you just articulated was way beyond just the system and process. It was the relationship, the trust, the loyalty, the expectation, the understanding, the communication. All of these things are lacking in the marketplace today, and they're the things you got to do to succeed. So I want you to unpack a little bit more, if you would. So you said you have a 10-step process that you follow. What are some of the key communication pieces? What are some of the key milestones that you see loan officers missing on a lot of times that they gotta hit these if they're going to have happy partners and happy customers?
100%. And like, I even remember like where I was in my office the day that I got a new loan in the door, and the listing agent was a pretty big fish. And I remember thinking, God, I just let these listing agents slip through my fingers, right? And I was doing a tremendous amount of purchase business at that point. And I'm thinking to myself, what if I could secure 50% of the listing agents? But I need a system and a process, right? So I just, what I would do is I had an hour a day blocked for working on my business. And it's one thing to tell people that, and I ran with my partner a $1 billion branch. Wow. And so I wasn't just focusing on my origination, but we were running a very large branch that we own. And I had 32 loan officers working under our roof. Wow. And so it was a big responsibility, but every single day from 10 to 11, I had a literal sign that I hung on my door that said, "Do not disturb." And everybody knew that was my on time, because I believe that our job is to focus on building and growing our business every single day, and it doesn't happen automatically. And granted, I had built a team at that point, so I could take that time. But I also, it's like, to me, I have non-negotiables in my life and my business, and that was a non-negotiable for me. So I remember the day I sat in my office and I'm like, I'm going to map out a plan. And of course, these things start with one, and then it's an iterative process over time. It gets better and better and better. So you don't have to make it perfect, but I started mapping out a plan of what I was going to do every time a purchase transaction came in the door and we secured a relationship with a listing agent. So first I built out a process for, okay, so when I'm doing the pre-qualification or the pre-approval letter and I'm sending it off to the buyer's agent, I mean, this is going back years and years and years ago, well over 20 years ago, where I called the listing agent 100% of the time. I just got off a training with 30 loan officers, and not one person raised their hand that they called the listing agent. Now, today I teach to do a video text to the listing agent, because they can see you, they can feel your energy, they can see your passion, and we have a framework for what's included in that video. But at the time, I called the listing agent because where I live in Manhattan Beach, California, 40% of our deals are all cash. There was multiple offers on most properties, and because it's beach community property, so it's highly desirable. And so I had to go the extra mile to help my clients win offers. And that became a value proposition for my realtors. It's like, look, I have a whole process for how to get your clients offered to a yes. So I want to help you I want to move you to the top of the heap. I'm going to call the listing agent. I'm going to clarify not only who I am and my level of experience and who I work for, so that they're confident in my abilities if they haven't worked with me. I'm going to edify you as the buyer's agent and tell them how amazing you are and edify you. I'm going to edify the borrower as much as I can to let them know that this is their dream home. They got me the documentation within 24 hours. Their debt to income ratios are great. Their credit, whatever the true statement is about the borrowers. And then my final thing is, and if it's important to your sellers, if it was a true statement, if it's important to your sellers, they would be a great addition to their neighborhood. They would be great neighbors for any neighborhood to have joined. And I can't tell you how many times over the years sellers chose them because of that statement. And that sounds silly, but if you've lived in your house for a long time and you love your neighbors, that's an important feature that we leave out. And so, and then I would put the listing agent's name and phone number in my phone, and I would put the address of the house because I was so busy at the time that, then if Joe Smith called me, I'd just answer. I'd be like, "Hi, Joe, how you doing?" And so it's just that everything was just like, how can I make a bigger impression? One more step. So, but just creating that. And then we created touch points and my handwritten thank you note to the listing agent, once we got the properties secured. And so now we teach this 10-point milestone. It's its own milestone for building relationships with the listing agent, which is around creating value throughout the process, not just delivering a great experience. But I started winning listing agents, in a really big way. And just those kind of shifts, putting in one extra, path, if you will, for how to build a relationship with someone that's right in your court, created a whole nother opportunity for business for us.
I absolutely love that. It is amazing to me. And I'm glad you brought this up because I teach this all the time. Probably 98% of loan officers that I meet that I haven't trained yet do not ever even think of calling the listing agent. In fact, I would say that probably 30 to 50% of the loan officers that I meet don't even call the buyer's agent. They do it all digitally. It's email, 100%. It's text message. It's, hey, I'm going to shoot them off the pre-approval, the pre-qualification letter, and they're not having conversation. I don't know if it's out of fear. I don't know if it's out of lack of knowledge and education. It might be laziness. Could be a lot of different things depending on the situation. But these are critical components of being a loan officer that's going to work in the purchase market. If you can't have conversations with both the buyers and sellers agents, you're not going to get the business. You're going to get unhooked by one of the two of those just about every time in the marketplace. And I love when you add things like the personal handwritten thank you note. That's like archaic in today's world. I mean, this is the stuff that, these are the dinosaur things that we did regularly back in 10, 20, 30 years ago that you don't see happening today because everybody's living in this digital world where it's all digital communication and conversation. And the thought of actually sitting down and handwriting a note, sending it to them, it becomes foreign, but it's what separates you from everybody else. It's what makes you that marquee loan officer where the realtor's like, okay, wait a minute. Cindy Ertman isn't like anybody else I've ever worked with in years and years and years. They're going to remember that and they're going to send you business. That is absolutely awesome.
Well, look, all this stuff takes time. That's why you have to have process around it. And obviously I've got staff that hold me accountable to that, but still to this day, I've owned my coaching company for 14 years. And every single time a new client signs, they don't have to be coaching with me. I've got 15 coaches that coach for my company. But the reality is I write their welcome card 100% of the time. I'll sit down with 5 books and 5 cards and knock them out, but it comes from me and I know it. And yeah, it takes time. And I've thought, I could do it through handwritten. I could do it through other means, but I'm all about, if I'm going to build a relationship with you, then it has to be rooted in real practices that make you feel valued and special. And so that's where, so much of what I teach is around pouring into my partners. And we get so caught up in wanting to share how great we are and how talented we are and our pricing and our products and our systems and all that's great. But I became super clear, Dale, early on that the most important thing is building the relationship first, and then you have time to share all that information with them. But one of my signature trainees called Connection to Conversion is a series of questions that you ask in a first meeting. And there's not anything that you talk about that reflects you.
Right.
And I probably have delivered that 200 to 300 times easily in my career. And the results, it's a different way of thinking. People, it's difficult for them to want to try it sometimes because it doesn't feel as safe for them because they're going down a whole different level of process. But I kept tweaking it till one day I had a meeting with a woman that managed a 250 person real estate office. We had never met. I stalked her on Facebook for 45 days first. So she was aware of who I was. I was commenting on her Facebook page. And then I did the almighty pick up the phone and call her. And I just believe in telling the truth. So my scripting, if you will, to her is like, hey, Sherry, I've been following you around and stalking you on Facebook, as I'm sure you could tell, for the last 45 days. And I feel like I've gotten to know you. I really like who you are. I love your posts. I love the energy because I'm all about it. You seem like a really kind person. I know you manage a really large office. I don't know why our paths have never crossed, but I really believe that great leaders need to know great leaders. And I would love to grab lunch with you next week and just learn a little bit more about you and your business. And she goes, that would be great.
I love it. It's so fun because, I'm wearing my Others First t-shirt, which has been our slogan for years. And I'm wearing it for a reason. The reason is because I knew I was interviewing you today. And you practice what you preach. Your reputation precedes you. Everybody I've ever heard mention your name always mentions it in the kindest way, because you live on the mindset of relationship. And you've mentioned it already 3 or 4 times today. And I love this. You've mentioned, if it's the truth, if it's the truth, if it's the truth. I love hearing that. Like, there's so many people that don't think that way. It's about, are we creating the greatest level of integrity with our clients and customers? Are we making sure that we're building a relationship? And when you talk about little things, like I love when you talked about, I sit down and I write the 5 cards myself. Now, let's think about this for a minute, okay? Yes, we're all busy. Yes, we all have a lot going on, but do we really not have 5 minutes in our day to do something that nobody else does? Because I know if I get a card from somebody that's AI driven or technologically driven, and I know when it's literally handwritten from them, and it makes a massive difference in the impression. It's like, wait a minute, they took the time to sit down, which means they value me. I was important enough for them to take the time to do that. I think we've lost a lot of that in the mortgage society today, and we got to get it back. We got to understand that as companies continue to move more and more and more towards heavy technology as the solution, the more you move to relationship. And by the way, again, I'm not limiting technology. We want to be high tech, high touch. I talk about that all the time. You've got to have great technological systems that allow you to free up time with the things that are mundane tasks, because technology can do that, so you can have relationship. But when you get that time, use that time. Don't be wasting that time on your emails and other things. Actually invest in people. So let me ask you this question. Top 3. What are the top 3 strategies or top 3 concepts that you would say are the quintessential 3 things that a loan originator needs to do or know in order to really slay this market today?
Well, number one, and I've had so many conversations around this, and it frustrates me to no end in our industry. I asked the question today on my training call. The number one thing I believe a loan officer needs to do today, and if I ask 100 people, I pretty much know. I used to say 70% did not know how to use their CRM, and they don't use it with any sort of consistency. And now I believe it's more like 90%.
Wow.
It's so high. And I mean, I remember that being beat into my head. And I remember not liking it by one of my first bosses in mortgage. And like, you have to have a database. And I remember finally, reluctantly getting ACT, and I hired a guy at the junior college because I didn't know what I was doing. If I hired him for a few hours to help me put all the data in and all that stuff. But I started to see the benefits of it. And so no matter how many times, we switched databases or things over the years, because I worked in several, but it was one of those things that I forced myself to take the time to learn how.
Yep.
And, I was one of those people, because I'm a crazy person, that I would take 4 hours on a Saturday morning if I had to. Because once you know it, the amount of time it's going to save you and the amount of revenue it's going to generate is so profound. And so, again, part of my system was in my calendar, because if you saw my calendar, it's frightening. I'm sure yours is too.
Mine too.
But my system was on the 1st and the 15th of the month. It was in my calendar that I was to write an email to my databases. And I had 4 of them. And so I would put my sign out, and those were my days to write my emails. And I kept them simple. I learned shorter was better. But I would send an email to my past client database. And I said, if you do not have a CRM that auto-populates their name, that you can write an email. And I know that a lot of companies today won't allow that. They have to go through, compliance. I get it. But all the companies that do that, you can send the email to compliance and ask them to send it out on your behalf.
Right.
Look, I would probably fight that a little bit, because that was such a big part of my revenue. 30% of my business year over year was my past client database. And I also became aware, and I teach it now through my past client call script, is that the quality of the questions you ask when you call a past client. I was never one that identified, because I didn't have the, here you get the list of the people that need to refi. I mean, it was like when I left my origination business, I turned over 4,600 past closed clients to my partner. But the fact that I touched those people twice a month for nearly 30 years.
Wow.
I literally have, one of these days I'm going to pull it out. I have a binder that I took from my old office, and it was filled with thank you notes from clients. And I got a 2-page thank you note from a gentleman who was going into a retirement center, who told me he had never heard from anybody over the course of his career more consistently than me. And he wanted me to know how much value I had provided. And he needed to send a letter to say thank you, because it had never happened with anyone else he'd ever done business with in his life. And I'm like, they noticed. But the reality is, it was my way of staying top of mind. And it can be simple. People think they don't know what to say. Well, now with chat, you don't have to even worry about what to say. It'll say it for you. But I remember one of the best emails I ever sent that would work today just as well. In the subject line, I tested the theory. It said checking in. The first line said, "Hi, Dale, just checking in to see how you're doing with your home and your mortgage. No rush, but I'd love to connect. It's been too long. Give me a call when you get a chance." I closed 19 loans off that email.
Wow. Yep.
I mean, it was just a very human. It looked like I wrote it just to you, right? It didn't look like it was a database email.
Yep.
And so I was always looking to make those communications feel more personal. Look, I'm not a fan of automated emails, but I know the newsletters I get from my financial planner, I never open. The newsletter I get from my CPA, I never open. So I tried to make subject lines meaningful. I tried to make the content meaningful. And then when I would call my past clients, I called 20 a week. And if I couldn't, I trained my LOA to call on my behalf. And I have a great call script that asks really important questions, that unveils opportunity that they would never call me for, because they don't know they need a loan, or they don't know they should be looking for another house now. And like, I'll give you an example, because I remember it like yesterday, calling
I'd love to hear some.
Past client. And it was he and his wife, and they were referred by it was a husband and wife team, Patty and Run, great realtor friends. And so I called, and I just went through the series of questions, and I said, "Hey, Jack, just checking in. Want to see how you're doing with your home and your mortgage." And it was like my script in my head. I didn't need a thing. But I would always ask, have there been any life changes for, you and your wife in the last year since the last time we talked? And that simple question unveils so many opportunities. Yep. So that particular day, he's like, "Well, as a matter of fact, we were done after 2 kids. And then we had accident baby. And that same thing happened to me as well. So I know it well." He goes, "And we thought we'd stay here for at least another 5 years, but like, we're pretty much on top of each other now. And so we may not be here more than another year." And I said, if you're on top of each other, and I said, I went through it too. I understand that feeling and all the baby stuff and all the clothes and all the, I go, the market's really great right now, Jack. I said, why would you and your wife not just take a look to see what's out on the market? And why would you wait a year? Yeah. You've done really well in your home. And I really, really like these clients. And I said, I'm going to encourage you to call Patty and Ren and just have the conversation and just see what's out there. So then I secretly called Patty and Ren right after I got off the phone. I said, "Run the comps, just be ready in case he calls." 2 weeks later, they were in escrow on their new home.
I love it.
And it was like, that was just because I asked a question. They would have never called me regarding refinancing.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's the mistake that everybody's making today, or that I see a lot of, is loan officers are expecting the phone to just ring. What would make you think that's going to happen? Everybody's busy. Everybody's scrolling on their phones. Everybody's got family things. A lot of people work from home, so they're tied up in all of the things that they're doing. They're not living the way they used to. what in the world would make them call you? And I love again how you and I are just so have the same philosophy about the business. We're so like-minded in this. Like when you were talking about, earlier, having the conversations with those realtors, and it's all about them, never about you. I have taught that for my entire career. Look, you want to contact a new realtor, the first thing you need to find out is research them and figure out what are the two things they're most proud of. What are their two biggest accomplishments? Talk about that. They'll invite you to lunch every time because you're talking about them. And I love the short, sweet, to the point email approach that you're talking about. We've been teaching for the last 3 years, loan officers all over the country, to simply say to your borrowers this simple statement: hey, I just want to check in and see how you're doing in this tough economy today. Kind of crazy out there. Want to make sure you're all right because we're saving people a lot of money right now. Would love to help you if I can. That is getting massive responses from borrowers. They're like, wait a minute. Yeah, it is crazy economy. I don't know what's going on. Like, if you hit them where they live and you understand the mindset and psyche of today's consumer, and we should know that because we're one of them. So all I got to do is look in the mirror and go, okay, what am I worried about? What are my fears? What are my concerns? They're probably the same for most of the people I come in contact with. If you can keep it short, sweet, to the point and do that, you're going to get all kinds of interaction from your borrowers, and you're going to create opportunities for yourself. I love what you just shared.
Well, so many people, and look, I get it. Time is very short. But again, when I talk about systems, for me, I had my top 20 realtors on a list. Today, It would be on my phone because every single thing is in Microsoft To-Do app, which is what I use for every list that I had. And I track everything. So, but, at that point, it was probably like a Word doc that was printed and went in my briefcase. But the reality is I had my top 20 that knew, like, and trusted me. And I had a list of 20 that I was hoping to build a relationship with. And I didn't have MMI at the time. So you do the best with what you have. And so, but my system for communicating, because I had that time block, and that was I called it my growth hour. That was a non-negotiable for me.
Right.
And so I knew what I was doing. Monday, I called 10 of the 20. I didn't, believe in some of my competitors that were saying call 40 people every Monday because that wasn't relational enough for me. I would call 10 and I would come up with a question that I would ask. And I asked the same question to all 10. It was a system. It made it easy, and it might just be, hey, what's one of the biggest challenges you're facing in the market right now? I'd pose a question to them and I would call the 10 people. And then I would call them every other week. So I called the other 10 the next Monday. I would sit down for that hour. I never had to think about what I was going to do. If it was the 1st and the 15th, I wrote my email. So that was my job for that day. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I called 10 past clients. And I literally had a printed list and I would highlight in yellow and I would just do the next 10. But I had my script. So, hey, Bob, just checking in. This is Cindy Ertman, Platinum Capital Group, just checking in to see how you're doing with your home and your mortgage. Haven't connected with you in a while and wanted to see how you're all doing. And then I would go through my 6 questions. And so I'd make that call count. And then if they wanted to have a deeper conversation, then I would schedule a follow-up call. And when times got really busy, like the year I hit 230 million, I gave that script to my LOA and I trained her to call the 10 people and then schedule appointments with me. But it was truly something that I did. And I'm always amazed because I was privately coaching a gentleman a couple of years ago. And his business was off. And he said, I've never called a past client in the 22 years I've been in business. And I said, well, up until now, so your job between now and Friday is to call 10 past clients. He got 3 loans from 10 calls. And the thing, Chris was so blown away of how much they were happy to hear from him.
Yeah, of course.
He felt like a loser because he'd never called them. And I'm like, just say, hey, it's been so long since we've connected. I was thinking about you. Wanted to check in and see how you're doing with your home and your mortgage.
Yep.
Who cares? But it's like if business is off and it's not where you want it to be, you're not in enough action, plain and simple.
That's exactly.
And it doesn't matter the market. I stressed about markets too. I was mostly the primary income earner, and I stressed about off markets. But I'm just like, I'd get creative. If I had 20 partners, the market was off. Okay, I got to get 40. I would go after different pillars. I built a whole strategy about how to secure a financial planner. And I cold called 5 financial planners and ended up with 2. And one of them is still my financial planner 20 years later and a very dear friend of mine. And I cold called him with a script and 20 questions that I met with him. And I also called him every January and led a training for his office every single January. I got so much business from my financial planner and my CPA. I didn't ask my CPA for business for 10 years. Like, that was the stupidest thing ever. Until I did. And I'm like, Gary, why have you never given me a deal? He's like, you've never asked.
Yep.
Like, so, I mean, again, there's a lot of business right in front of us that we're not tapping into. We don't tap into our network. One of my databases was business contacts, and I emailed it twice a month. And the people in that list were every business person I met. I worked with the same florist in Manhattan Beach for years. I got to know the owner. She went in my database. My OBGYN, my dentist, my GP, they buy houses too.
That's right.
Every single business person.
And expensive ones.
went into my database. And so, I had my past client database, friends and family. I had 250 people in my friends and family database because my sister-in-law went to Bank of America because she didn't know I did refis. I'm like, that's just absurd. So I started, marketing to my friends and family and all my kids' sports teams' parents. And, so that was friends and family, which was really my Christmas card list. And then my business contacts database. And then at one point I developed a lunch and learn database because I was doing those monthly. And then I'd add people in or I'd delete people out. But I love if I'm doing a task more than once, I don't want to have to rethink it and recreate it. I want to have a system around it. I lead 4 retreats a year. We have systems around all of it, like all the details that need to be created. So once you just take an hour to build it out, I teach people to build an annual marketing plan. It takes an hour to build your whole plan for the year. It saves you so much time. So that's where I really believe the difference between a top producer and everybody else is you're only as good as your systems or the paths that you've created for the client experience, right?
I love it. What I love the most about the conversation we're having is you're making it so simple for everybody. And I've always been a believer that this is a very simple business and we complicate the heck out of it is what happens. We just make it harder than it needs to be. And we focus on the wrong things. I mean, I meet too many loan officers and too many employees in the mortgage business, leaders included, where their goal is to clean out their emails. And I'm like, if that's your goal, you're going to be broke. That is not your goal. Your goal is to impact people. And your goal is to have as many conversations in a day as you can. And you got to do that by simplistically just planning out your day. You've got a time block, just like you've talked about multiple times. You've got to have a database you can work out of that you can easily access, not a bunch of pink slips of paper all over the place that are flying around the office, but have them in your CRM system. You've got to have simple conversations. And most importantly, you got to do it. Literally, I just did a session today with a client, with all of my clients when I do my monthly sessions across our client base. And one of the statements that I made in there was, guys, the difference between top producers and low producers is top producers do what they need to do. Low producers talk about what they're going to do. That's the difference. Is, are you a doer or are you talking about what you're doing? You've got to make these concessions in your day to understand it's all about ROI. It's about return on investment. If I'm going to invest time, the question I need to ask is, what return am I getting for that? If I'm just in there cleaning out emails, I'm not getting any return at all, except for the ones that are leading to business opportunities. Those become your priorities. If you build that priority mindset, you're going to be much better. And I love how you've articulated so easily. It's amazing to me how many times I've trained loan officers on calling their database. And I'm like, look, I've taught you 3 times, 4 times. You're still not doing it. I'm going to simplify it. Call 5 people today. Take 5 minutes. That's all I want you to do. Don't call them once a month when you're out of business, because then you're going to push too hard and you're going to get worn out after the 3rd call. Call 5 each day, every day, 5 minutes a day. You're going to call 100 a month. You're probably going to leave 92 voicemails and only talk to 8 people. And out of that, you're probably going to get 20 conversations that will lead to 10 applications that'll lead to 5 loans instantly, just because you made a 30-second phone call. It's more than worth the investment.
100%. And I mean, I'm so grateful for, this old boss of mine that just beat me over the head, database. And, I really, truthfully, if I were to go back in the business today, the first thing I would do is reestablish my database, know exactly how to use it, and have my first couple of emails written because, and I tried to hit them. I remember my partner, she'd be like, I can't believe you send like postcards to them. And I'm like, I sent them a postcard quarterly. She was so old school. It was old school then.
Yeah.
But the reality is it worked.
It works.
Because again, you're getting in front of maybe the wife this time, or maybe you're getting it sits there. I try to come up with content that was valuable. But the reality is, I said, the reason I'm doing it is because every single time that postcard hits, and I only send it to past clients, I would get the call, thank you so much for the postcard because I've been meaning to call you for 3 months. And it just like I'd start laughing and be like, okay, we got 5 calls off the darn postcard. But you know what? I did it because it was another way of touching them. And so, we all interpret information differently. Text message is helpful because a lot of people I don't get through all my emails, candidly. I don't. I get too many. I just can't. I look for the highlights. But I'm coaching, teaching, or training most of the day. So
that's right.
My clients know to get to my team if they need to get to me. So, but it's a beautiful thing when you come up with some simple systems. And, being a working mom and raising 3 kids and wanting to be a great parent, and it's difficult, in this business for sure. And so I remember creating non-negotiables around how do I have a life and do this at such a high level? And I do believe that maybe one of the differentiators with me is that I really went out on great limbs to find the right people and pay people well. Because I realized it gave me freedom to be able to spend time with my kids or go on vacation. And
smart.
In my early years, Dale, when I didn't have that kind of support, I would go to a fellow loan officer and beg them to cover my business for a week, which no one wanted to do because I was a very busy loan officer, but I would then give it in return. I'll cover your business for a week. So that's how I got support. It was not perfect. I lost business, but I had a week's vacation with my family. And if you got my voicemail at 6:30 at night, my voicemail as part of my normal voicemail said, if you're getting this between 6:30 and 8 at night, I'm at home having dinner with my children. I'll call you back after 8. I never lost a business because people knew I'd call them back.
Oh, and people respect that. Yeah.
That was a non-negotiable. My kids would tell you they're the only ones in their neighborhood that had dinner as a family every night, but that just was how I was raised and something I wanted to provide for my kids. So I do think that I'm living proof that you can build a very big business, but you've got to really look at getting the right help and support. And people say, I can't afford it. I'm like, you can't afford not to.
That's right.
Sometimes you just got to write the check to be able to, because when I was at work, I wanted that time focused on income and relational activities. This is my sole focus every day. And if you're a loan officer that's in the files every single day and you can't get out of the files and you can't get to appointments and you can't call people, and then you're never going to build and grow a business. Like you're in the hamster wheel. And I'd really suggest that people look at that and be like, there is another way. And you teach it and I teach it. There is another way to do it. And it's called creating some systems and processes and also entrusting people to do their job. And I'm a recovering control freak. I admit it.
Me too. Well, I might still be a little bit of one. I'm not sure if I'm recovering or not.
But, it's hard to learn to empower the team and trust the team to take the ball. But, I knew I'd arrived one day, and it was hard because it took me a minute. I kind of like, oh, how do I feel about this? When my LOA, we call them our transaction coordinators, is when the realtor or the client walked in with a gift for my assistant. And I didn't get a gift, but she gave the gift to the assistant and said, oh my gosh, like you were so amazing. And then I stopped for a minute. I'm like, I have arrived.
That's awesome. That's right.
Because they love my team enough to give them a thank you gift.
I love that. I always said as a leader, I knew I was a good leader the day that I could go on vacation for a week, not call the office, and it ran just fine without me. That's when I knew I'd hit it as a leader because you built a team around me that could do the job well. So that's great wisdom. So any final thoughts, Cindy, about anything you want to share with the audience, that encouragement, thoughts about the year, anything that we haven't covered that's on your mind that
Well, I do feel that this is the first time, as we know, in many years now, that we have an opportunity, and I was able to spend some time with our mutual dear friend Barry Habib yesterday, and we were talking about the market and what's
My
coming
guy.
and some of the things that are being worked on behind the scenes. And I'm so encouraged, regardless of all the things going on in the world right now, that we have a real opportunity. And so, I mean, obviously, I believe in coaching hands down because it changed my life. I
Yep.
think that the work you do in the world, Dale, has changed so many lives. And a lot of times people feel like they can't afford it. I feel like you can't afford not to. And I always say it doesn't
Yep.
have to be Cindy Ertman or it doesn't have to be Dale Vermillion, but it should be someone that's pouring into you and helping you, step outside your comfort zone and make bolder choices. One
Yep.
of the things that I do for myself, I started about a year and a half ago, heard this in a meditation I was listening to. And I meditate more every morning. I have about an hour practice of how I prepare for my day. But in this meditation, it talked about what's one bold choice you can make today to move you closer to your dream. And so I thought I'm going to integrate that into my daily practice.
That's cool.
And I just thought, okay, I'd wake up in the morning and it's the end of my practice. And I'll be like, okay, what's one bold choice I can make today? And then usually for me, it's like, all right, what CEO of a national mortgage bank can I call today? And just like you, I know a million people, so I can usually figure out how to get somebody's cell phone.
Yep.
And I don't have any fear of the phone. I never have, because I'm like, if I don't have a relationship with them now, like, what do I have to lose? Absolutely nothing. So they don't call me back. A realtor doesn't call me back. I'm like, I'm not tied to the outcome.
That's right.
So I just lead boldly. And I have made so many cold calls to leaders and just sharing who I am and what I do and my respect for them. And I'd love the opportunity to learn a little bit more about them and their business. And much to my surprise, even some of the biggest leaders in America, they don't always get back to me right away,
But they get
but
back to you.
usually within 2 weeks, I've got a message coming in from a national leader. And if I didn't take that one big bold choice, so I would encourage people to integrate this practice into your own life and to really ask yourself, what's one bold choice you can make today
Love it.
to move you towards, the life that you want to create for yourself? Because, we only regret the shots we don't take. And I am committed to live my life with no regret. And I don't have any fear of somebody telling me no, because for me, what I hear is not now. I don't
Right.
hear no. I hear it's just not the right day, or maybe I asked the wrong person or asked the wrong question. But I think making a bold choice right now is big. And I really want people to hear that you're only as good as the systems you create, and start simple, but create a process, particularly a follow-up process for your realtor partners after you have a meeting. We teach it. We have a dialed in system and process, but having that ability to really build that relationship, if you've
Yep.
taken the time to meet with them, don't let that opportunity slip through the crack. Take that opportunity to lean in and provide value. One of the other things I coach on is, if you're going to a meeting, most people don't go to the meeting with the outcome they want to create. I go to every meeting knowing the outcome I want to create. And usually every first meeting with a realtor, my desired outcome is asking for the second meeting while I'm at the first meeting, because I can get them secured in the second meeting to a yes to work with me, because I have a
Love
system
that.
around that too.
Love that.
So I just think somehow along the road over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think 2020, 2021 didn't serve us very well, is
Nope.
people started getting lazy and we lost that drive and that ambition. And so
Yep.
make a bold choice each and every day, and you'll start to see things really shift.
Well, that was a drop the mic moment right there. That was awesome. You said something that was so powerful when you said, I'm not tied to the outcome. I've never heard that before. I never quite thought of it that way before. And that hit me like a brick. Like, yes, that's what people need to understand, is that you're not tied to the outcome of the call. You're just making the call, and whatever happens, happens. It doesn't affect you one bit. It could, and well, the worst that can happen is they just say no. They don't kill you, shoot you, and eat you. They just don't do that.
Well, and Dale, one other thing, because I get asked this a lot, and I'll just share this because a lot of people will go, well, I'll call a person and they don't respond. I mean, look, how many times did I call a realtor and they wouldn't call me back? I mean, It happened all the time. So I had, again, my own system and process. My process is I called the realtor on my Wednesday calls, which is the list of 20 I wanted to get to know.
Yep.
Most of the time, they didn't call me back, I would say. So I waited 2 days, had a system, and then I would email them. Hey, I left you a message a couple of days ago. I know how busy you are, but I've got something really important I want to talk to you about. I have something that I think you might really want to hear about from a marketing perspective. I use curiosity all the time to get people to call me back.
Yep. Curiosity.
And if I didn't hear back, 2 days go by, and then I text them. Hey, I left you an email. I left you a voicemail. I know you're super busy, but there's something I really want to share with you. I just need 10 minutes of your time. If you would do me a favor. And then if I didn't hear back, then if it was somebody I really set my sights on, and this was like my super story in 2 seconds, there was a guy that quickly, I don't know how he did it. Well, I learned how he did it, but he kind of moved up the ranks from a realtor that we didn't even know. And Manhattan Beach it's like 50,000 people. It's small.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this guy just like moved to the top of the ranks. And we didn't even know where he came from because there were so many top producers in our market, but that were name brands to me. But Sean was not one of them. And so my partner and I decided, and this is for not taking yourself so seriously, that we were going to try to win him over. And we didn't even know him. So we got his phone number and we put this little system together where every Monday we would text him, email him, or call him. We did this every Monday, swear on my life, for 2 years, and never heard back from Sean until we did.
Wow.
And one Monday I sent him a text and he responded back, and I had to look at it like 5 times. I'm like, 2 years. He goes, I'll give you 15 minutes. I'll come to your office. And I was like screaming at my partner. I'm like, oh my God, he responded. He's given us 15 minutes. So Sean came to our office. He stayed for 2 hours, by the way.
Wow.
And I said, Sean, why now? He goes, Cindy, nobody has ever pursued me like that in the history of my career. He goes, you've always been my second choice lender. I just had a long-term relationship with my guy. And then he took on a partner and his service started faltering and he kind of was taking the back seat. I think he's retiring. And he goes, I just decided it was time because I knew if you pursued me that hard, you'd never let my clients slip through the cracks. So he's like, you've always been in the wings. And I would laugh every time I get your text, your email. He gave us a $1.4 million loan that afternoon. We became very good friends over time. I made him come in one day and deliver his listing presentation to me because he won almost every listing. And I remember till this day, he was the only realtor that I'd ever known. All the realtors sell themselves. He sold his company and he was winning against all of his competition. So don't give up. Like if there's somebody you want to pursue, I ended up winning such a big fish and building such a great relationship because I just didn't take it so seriously. And I just didn't give up.
I love it. Well, Cindy, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh gosh, what an honor. What a privilege for us to have you. Tell the audience how they can reach out to you if they want to hire you or hire your coaches. You know, you and I, even though we're both have been coaches, I'm not really a coach. As you know, I train large companies. You coach people, and man, I fully endorse anybody contacting you and your team because I'm a firm believer in coaching when it's great coaches, and I know that you are and your team is. How would they reach out to you to take advantage of that?
Well, obviously, you could reach out through social media. It's Cindy Ertman, or you could go to my website. It's either or, thedefiningdifference.com or cindyertman.com. We just launched our new website, so I'm super excited about that. There's some free resources on the site, and there's a schedule a call, and our calls are actual coaching sessions. We're drilling down on what your challenges are, where you feel the gaps are in your business, where you feel stuck. And then we just talk about what we offer. And if it fits for you, great. We are not chasing you around in high pressured salespeople. Like we want to help people that want to be helped, that really want to grow. And so, and my greatest joy is watching people sign up for a session and, watch their business, elevate 20%, 30%. One of my clients right now is at 98% in 6 months. Like that's joy, that's super, super exciting. So obviously we would love to have a conversation. If you've got questions, you can email us at info@cindyertman.com. But I appreciate the opportunity, Dale. I've been a super fan of yours for a very long time. And so it's really an honor for me to be here with you today. And I appreciate you.
Well, the feeling's mutual, my friend. It really is. And hey, you and I and Barry got to get together and hang out sometime soon. And
I think we should.
we're all part of the Titans group. So yeah, that'd be fun. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again for being on. Really appreciate you. That is another wrap on a Betting 1,000, guys, where we interview the heavy hitters. And Cindy has absolutely hit that mark. No question about it. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next edition. God bless everybody. Have a great day.